We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about Uganda. Uganda is an African nation, and we're going to find out about who the street children are. They aren't what you think they are. So let's talk to Diane Rainier. She's the founder of it. And we have the president of the board. Connie, it's always good to see you on the show, too. So tell us a little bit about your project.
Well, Jajja's Kids, excuse me, has been a life-changing experience for the children that we're dealing with, and also for everybody that's been involved. Jajja's Kids began when I went to Uganda in 2006.
You're going to be going again.
We're going again. We just got tickets last night. Connie and I are going. We haven't been there in almost 5 years, which is kind of heartbreaking. Thank you, COVID, for that happening. Yeah, we're excited to go again. We're very excited. So what we have is a program. We have 20 children that when they first got involved, the program really started 10 years ago with a home. And when we opened the home and brought kids in, these were children that had been living on the street. They may have had a family or not. And if they had a family, the family couldn't feed them steadily. They weren't going to school because there wasn't enough money. There's no free education in Uganda, basically.
There's no free education?
There's no free education. There's government schools and even...
And they have to pay tuition, like?
In government schools, you have to pay for all the supplies. You have to pay for your uniforms. You have to have some money.
Okay.
School fees, tests and stuff like that. There's all these different hidden costs. For our kids, they don't go to government schools, which are terrible. They go to good private schools, which are really the only thing to do there, and they're getting a good education. So we started 10 years ago opening the doors to a home, and the children that came in the door, we had started with 10 kids between the ages of 4 and 9, and so they're little bitty kids, and they've grown. The program has grown.
We have 14 and 19 now.
Right, and we have older children too. So we have 20 children in the program now. One is actually out on his own. We've got 2 that just started university. We've got 3 that are in trade schools, 2-year trade programs.
They never would have gone to university otherwise.
They might still be living on the street, picking scraps up to sell to feed their families. We have a boy who was 7 at the time we brought him in, Aziz, and he was earning money for his family at the age of 7. So they came from incredible poverty, lack of just about anything else, self-sustaining, and now they've got a future life.
And probably no dreams.
Yeah,
right.
It was day to day. How can I survive?
Survival.
And now, given that they've been in the home for as long as they have dreams, and hopefully we're able to assist them in meeting those dreams. We try to be very careful in terms of the choices that the kids do make, that it's something they can be successful at, rather than a child who maybe is not doing very well at school wants to be a doctor. That's not necessarily going to happen. So it's Ronnie works very hard with the kids.
And who is Ronnie?
Ronnie is the director of
He's been on
Uganda.
the show too when he was here.
Yeah, he's been here a couple of times.
He started out on the street from age 6 to 16, so he spent 10 years on the street, and his whole life is dedicated to giving back and to working with these children.
He sees the importance of what's going on.
Absolutely. And he works very hard with the kids to try and help find out who they are for themselves, as well as what they can do.
Well, they have to transition from being street kids to realizing that now they don't have to worry about their clothing or eating or anything.
Right.
Then they can start with what Maslow talks about is self-actualization. They can finally get to that point.
He helps them to understand that they have value, because as street children, they're treated so poorly. They're the scum of the earth. They're trash. They're treated like trash, whether they have a good soul inside or not.
It doesn't make any difference. That's how they're being perceived.
Right. So he's been working with them all these years, and still we have children that are higher teen level, and they're still traumatized by the father that left them, Ronnie is constantly working with that.
Yeah. Now, you brought photos, so let's, Raymond, I don't know if you can bring up the first one, and we'll kind of work through these because they may not be in the exact order, but at least you can tell us what we're looking at there. And we'll hold those up there, Raymond, until
Okay.
next one.
Okay, so what you're seeing there is 5 years ago, we bought property to build a new house because the little house we were renting was too small and the kids got bigger and
So you didn't buy an existing house, you bought land?
we
Well, the house that you see in the upper right
Yeah.
is the bare bones of
Oh, the
what
bare bones, okay.
what we bought. Half of the house was finished fairly well. The other half was made very poorly and basically needed to be taken apart
Oh, wow.
and rebuilt, which we didn't realize at the time when we bought the property. Ronnie acted as the general contractor and took on a whole new learning level.
Yeah, I guess so.
And the kids helped with the construction.
Which was good.
And-
Sweat
on
equity.
Yeah.
weekends
And they really wanted to.
And they were learning too at the same time.
Right.
Yep, they were learning building skills and, they have a piece of the home now in their hearts too.
Yeah.
So,
And there is a,
oh, no.
Wait, you stay on there, please.
there will be a picture later of the
Yeah,
of the
we're
house when
gonna-
it's completed. On the left, yes, left, is John, one of the children, is in an agricultural program. And on the bottom right is land that we purchased with the idea to help them be self-sustaining.
So they grow their own food. is what
So
you're saying.
they do grow their own food.
Started
It's-
during the pandemic.
Okay.
And John is working on his agricultural program using the land as his project.
As this project. Now, do they, I see you have the land there. Now, do they also sell any of that, or is that all for themselves?
The idea is that they will sell some of it. It's been hard to get a market, but the idea is that they will sell some and then keep the rest for
Yeah,
themselves.
I didn't know whether there was enough land to create more.
Well, they grew sweet potatoes the first year, and part of the problem was it was during COVID. And they weren't allowed to
Market it. Yeah.
get out of the village to market it
Yeah.
and to process it, so it was quite a learning experience
Let's
in
take a
that
look at the
first
next
year.
slide there.
So the lower left photo is what the house looks like now.
Okay.
And it was a godsend because during COVID, 2 of our children wound up coming back from school with COVID.
Oh, dear.
Very ill. And because the house was set up the way it was, they were easily able to be isolated from the other children. In the other house that we had, everyone would have come down with it.
Yeah.
And it would have been a disaster.
So this was good.
This was very good.
It was a blessing.
So the other pictures there, the one above the house on the left, that's when we first started the program, Ronnie and I, before we had a house. This is taking place in an old church. And the church was where we had programs for the children, a little bit of education, lesson in English, lesson in math. And we realized that it was just a Band-Aid. They weren't getting a real education
Yeah.
by an hour of English every week. Then on the right is the house, the old house, the original house, when the children first started. So you see a bunch of little kids there. That's the group that we had to start with.
To start with. And the next one, please.
All right, and this one is the 3 children that are in agriculture, and well, on the left is Juma, who's in a catering program now. They've all graduated from high school,
Okay.
and so they're in a 2-year program. Juma's in a catering program. Daphne in the middle is in a nursing program, and on the right are 2 kids that are at university, Sonia and Mark. Sonia is studying pre-law, and Mark is studying to be a civil engineer. And I love to tell
Is
this.
that amazing?
It's very amazing. Mark
And,
was.
and well, they'll give back to their communities, I would assume.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way we look at it, we look at the program and some might say, well, it's only 20 children, but those 20 children have the potential to affect their families and their community. And that's really the goal, is to have this ripple effect that goes out to the broader world, because we want and they want to give back to their society.
Well, and then once they earn enough money, they may set up another house. I mean, it's so.
Or
it
they may
will-
take over Jajja's kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made
Sonia, in blue on the right, she came into the program at a point when she was somewhat estranged from her family. Her father had a second family and had stopped paying her schooling. And she was, needless to say, very upset. And she hung out with Daphne at the house. She was not a member of the house. And when we were there, I took on supporting her to bring her into the program,
Oh, okay.
to give Daphne another girl in the program as well. And one of the most beautiful things to me was she graduated from high school this last year, and her father called up Ronnie, because he was here in the U.S. at the time, and was so grateful that she was
Even
the
though he had
first,
abandoned her.
Yeah,
Right.
she was the first in their family that had completed school and was going on. And to me, that is a real miracle, that this father had accepted her enough to come back to the family.
Right.
And him too. So that's how the ripple effect
The ripple
can
effect.
be.
I guess one of my questions is, and thank you, Raymond, one of the questions that I have is, how did this come apart, Raymond? I mean, how did this happen? I mean, it's not like, oh, let me see the Africa, oh God, throw a dart, oh, Uganda. I mean, tell me.
Not at all. Sometimes I wish it had been a different country than Uganda, because the government, the country is
Yeah.
challenging.
Oh, it's terrible,
And it's
yeah.
like, why did we do that? So what happened was, initially, I went to Uganda to do a photography workshop. And I wanted to, I needed an assignment. So I wanted to go into the slums and photograph the children. I had that sense.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to Ronnie, who, as Connie had said, lived on the streets for 10 years. And at the age of 20, when I met him, he was considered he was considered the chairman of the street kids. I mean, he had this leadership role. There's 10,000 kids
Well,
on the streets.
they needed somebody to
And
turn
they-
to.
yeah,
And
so
he was
he's-
a good guy rather than
He
a
was
bad
a
guy.
good guy. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
So he was assigned to me, and for a couple of days we hung out. He took me into the slums, because as a white woman with expensive equipment, I couldn't go there by myself. And he was wonderful. So I watched him going into the areas where I photographed kids, and he was being very careful. You know, somebody had a wound on his hand that wouldn't heal. So we went and got medicine for him, and I could just
So
see.
he was like,
He was dedicated.
benevolent leader.
He didn't have 2 shillings to himself, but he was really into helping what he could. So I decided to help him help the children. And that started it. And we did, like the church program that we showed before. We did things like that for a couple of years. And then we decided that was Band-Aiding the problem, and then we started the house. So.
that was what, I mean, it's really great what you've done. It's amazing, because I often wonder, well, how did you pick Uganda, or one of the other countries?